Look, on Leadership Now, I promised never to do commercials, but here we are. Why? Well, I have a new book in the works. It's coming out spring 2026, and I wanted to give you an advance heads up about it. The title, The Future of Work is Gray, and it's kind of a big deal to me because the book dives into the age crisis that's reshaping work as we know it. It's something that I call age debt, but spoiler alert, it does turn into some solution. There's some hope, there's some positive, and that's called the experience dividend. So if your workplace still thinks that age is a liability, well, it's time to retire that mindset. In fact, we might want to retire the word retire. So yeah, I don't do ads. This is a special occasion, and for it, I am willing to go gray. And maybe Grey Goose will sponsor me, not sure. Anyway, spring 2026, the future of work is gray. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Leadership Now with me, Dan Pontefract. In the house, a Canuck, Christa Haberstock. Christa, so good to see you. Short bio, and then we're going to get right into it. Christa is a visionary leader in the speaking industry, indeed, with a career spanning nearly 3 decades, where she began her journey kind of like me, as an elementary school teacher, in her case in the music field, in Canada, fellow Canuck indeed, before transitioning to a role at a speakers bureau in Texas in around 1997. But her talent, exceptional extraordinaire, quickly propelled her to becoming one of the industry's top producing agents. She's booked over $40 million in speaking fees for various industry titans and whimsical people like me. In 2009, Christa founded C Agency, a speaker management firm renowned for discovering and developing elite talent. Under her leadership, C Agency achieved significant milestones, ranking twice in the top 20% of Inc.'s 5,000 fastest growing companies in America, and earning a place on the SMU SMU Cox School of Business Dallas 100 entrepreneur list. Her innovative approach to speaker management led her to establish something else, Bookable Speakers, where she now serves as CEO. This venture focuses on elevating professional speakers through advanced education, a connected community, and all kinds of really cool things that turn people into better speakers than they are today. As an author, she now has a book. It's penned and titled as follows: Become a Bookable Speaker, from the agent who takes speakers from no name to Hall of Fame. What a title, where she shares her insider knowledge to help speakers build sustainable and thriving careers. I'm so thrilled that you get to be here today, hanging out with me, a fellow Canuckle, my friend. Let's take a step back first and foremost, because we got to talk about elementary school teacher. Lots of career changes happen for lots of people, but there's far few that actually jump out of wanting to be a teacher as they were a kid, going to university, then being a teacher, and then doing something different. So let's start there, and then I do want to see how those classroom management skills, so to say, have helped you, because you're basically managing speakers who are kids anyway, in that field. So let's talk about the early part of Chris's career.
Well, man, with pleasure. And by the way, with reading that intro like that, you should really consider being a speaker, because that was tremendous. I don't know if you've given it any thought.
Once in a while, yeah.
Once in a while. No, you're amazing. Thank you for that. So I'm very happy to talk about my elementary music teaching career. In fact, I've really built some kind of deeper thoughts around it, really done some introspection around it, what that transition meant to me, and what it kind of did to me in a way. And I'm really realizing what that was like. So, in the Wayback Machine. So there was went through my arts degree, bachelor's of music. Then I got my education degree, Bachelor of Elementary Education with a major in music. And so there was that. And then that whole time I was teaching. So all in all, I was teaching with internships, and actually in the classroom was about 7 years. And, my mom was actually a choir teacher as well. So it's deeply in me. And I just always thought I was set, I was going to do that. Well, my husband at the time wanted to go do his master's. Well, come here and do his master's in Texas. And there's a great school here that he wanted to go to. I was like, well, how hard could it be to get a teaching job? Well, that's fine, but getting actually a visa to work in the States was tricky. So about 6 months there, we had like quit our jobs, moved out of our house, packed everything up to go, just waiting for immigration. And it took a long time. So it was around Canadian Thanksgiving in October, as you know. My brother and sister-in-law came up from Texas to visit for Thanksgiving. Now, my brother, as you know, Dan, is a Hall of Fame speaker in 2 countries, in Canada and in the States.
Yeah.
1992 Winter Olympics he competed in. And that time he was a fledgling, motivational speaker. And, I think his fee was like $3,500 or maybe not even, right? At that time, 1997. And he met and married the owner of a speakers bureau, Michelle. So they came up, they heard our plight, and not even a few days after they got back, Michelle called me and said, "Hey, I just fired somebody. I think you might be able to do her job, and I could get you into the States with management consultant visa," which is exactly what my job would be for her. So a week later, I was in the States working for a speakers bureau. So I had been like teleported from being an elementary music teacher to working in a speakers bureau. And she asked me day one, morning one, she goes, "Do you know what we do?" And I said, "I have no idea." I don't like, what's the events industry? Tell me, I didn't, and Dan, I didn't know any of the Canadian, or pardon me, I knew the Canadians.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of the American like sports figures, certainly not non-hockey ones.
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't know like the political figures, how to say Colin Powell. It wasn't Colin Powell. There was just a full list of things. The culture shock was real. Not just from Canada to the States, but culture shock between teaching and doing sales. I had no sales experience outside of, selling dresses in a retail shop, right? So I figured I had to figure it out. I employed what I call my obvious advantage of FSO, my figure stuff out. You know what the S really stands for, but
I
anyway,
do. Yeah.
yes, you do. Yes, because you do it all the time. Entrepreneurs have to.
Yeah.
So I found a way to sell speakers to event planners that was distinctly in my wheelhouse, in my skill set, and it leans very heavily on what it took to be a teacher of like 30 students at a time, and to really figure out all these individual personalities and how they would absorb information, how you could get their attention, what it would take to actually hook them in. And so what I ended up doing was taking like if I had an event request from a planner
Hmm.
or someone putting on a meeting or whoever it was, they said, let's just say we need our budget is this, we need a team building speaker. We, prefer to have a woman. And so I think, okay, so I maybe at the time didn't know, well, I don't know a female team building speaker, but I know this person that has something that could do that. Oh yeah, so contact the speaker. Yes, yes. So I'd reverse engineer the materials to fit exactly what the event professional was doing. And it was a slam dunk every time. And so they like, "Oh, how did you find this a perfect speaker again?" I'm like, "Well, I made sure they could do it. And then I presented it to you in a way that what you understood." And so sales was really just delivering information that met a need, which really is the same thing as teaching. And so that was really a profound realization, not all that long ago, that all that kind of skill set was still alive and well in Christa. And my obvious advantages were in me the whole time to operate in my strengths. Instead of seeing not being able to do sales as a weakness, I just operated in what I knew instinctively. So it was a rough transition. It was 10 years I was at the Speakers Bureau. I'm not going to say that it was pleasant in any way, because I make it sound like rosy, look what I did. But there's a tremendous amount of heartbreak around 100% commission sales when you're supporting your family, had a couple babies during that time. I'm intensely competitive. And so not getting every single deal was just not acceptable for me. So I beat myself up a lot. And I was, unfortunately, and this is something else I'm just recently realizing, I was really driven down by fear,
Mm.
fear of not eating, fear of, not eating, but,
Wow.
but just not being able to provide for my family, because the weight of my rent was on a booking. And if that booking fell through, and it happened a lot, there's no backup plan for Krista providing for her family. There was no backup plan. And I didn't see my job in a way that felt like a calling. It felt like a burden.
Mm.
So there's, Tony Robbins talks about the push motivation versus the pull motivation.
Yeah.
And like, if you try and push a string, it doesn't go very well. It goes all over the place, and there's a lot of stress in that. And not having any kind of pull motivation was really tough. And so that was a very trying time. I learned a ton. I look back and I'm like, oh, that's where my anxiety came from. I get it.
Well, you've demonstrated clearly a few things. One is the obvious transferability of skill from one profession to another. You've demonstrated resilience and grit for those hardship times in which things might not have been going well, but you're just putting yourself out there through both gumption and will to get yourself through the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the hurdles. But you've also learned a lot through those experiences, not just moving from Canada to Texas, but moving industries and really learning within the industry itself of speaking. And so that's where I want to actually segue next to is the learning. So when you write a book like Become a Bookable Speaker, it is because what I'm referring to you as I refer to myself as these days, is a ruby. So we go through life as a river, a rock, and then a ruby. Rivers are when we're young, we're like fluid, we're like, oh, we're learning everything. We got lots of questions, lots of ideas. We become rocks. When rocks are there, you're there still being impacted by some of the rivers and your own river tendency, i.e., you're learning. But then you're kind of like, okay, I've got this, and now now you know what? I got a pace. I can get to 40 million in bookings. That part's easy. And then we become rubies, and you write books, and you start helping others. So let's talk about your river to rock period where you're learning. So what have you learned about not just yourself, but also the industry of speaking? What are some of the things that you've realized that can help a listener or a viewer today with both you as a leader, as a human being, but also within the industry?
Well, I'll just grab one of them. They're all spinning around in my head as you're saying this. I'm thinking, God, one thing that I've learned. Well, I mean, so many. Um, well, let me say top line. I recognize now, and I think I always have recognized on some level how blessed I am to be in this industry around these people. And I think that's why a lot of people, when they get into this industry, and everyone, it seems like everyone falls backwards into it. Like no one really goes to school for this.
Yeah,
We
agreed.
all get into it by accident. It's a very
Like,
strange thing.
what? You want me on a stage? Huh?
Yeah, well, it's like, you do what for a living? It's like,
Uh,
yeah, well, I have an agency for motivational speakers. That's what I tell people. They go, that sounds cool. And usually I'm just like, can be. But,
yeah.
it is very, very cool to be around these incredible people. Like just having you in my cell phone is like very, very cool for me. Just I can just reach out. And even when I was developing, I think was it the book or it was the events, the
Yeah,
bookable speakers
yeah, our
events.
book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was the events that I wrote, reached out to you, and just to have you access to you and other thought leaders and people have done incredible things. I've learned to not take that for granted. So that's top line, really important to note. Um, I have learned that uh, when you get to this side after having seen speakers in their infancy, I call it the pre-emerging phase, and then the emerging, and then they develop into the more established phase, and you stay there for a while, and then they turn like mastery and legacy, right? So there's kind of these different, lines along the phases. It's been really interesting for me, especially lately, to see speakers in pre-emerging say, to be a speaker, and you go, okay, that would be great, and then they are an emerging speaker and they go, I'm ready to take over the world, and you go, no, you're not. And I
just
will, and
just have a seat.
just have a seat. There's so much involved. And then to say, and of course you want to encourage people, and I don't ever want to make it seem like, oh, it's impossible. And it's not impossible. It's definitely possible. But even the speakers that I have developed, it took years longer than they thought it would. And as much as you try and prepare them for it and say, y'all, this is years. This is going to take years. And oh no, not for me. Okay, well, I mean, and I don't know why I can't put it down to any one thing other than I think it's just nature's way of making sure that the right people are grabbing the microphone. And trouble, like bad things happen when the wrong people have the microphone. I do know that.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
yeah. I call them, I think you probably saw this on LinkedIn. I accidentally wrote a book last week. So I my my daughter says I'm ADHD and I get hyper fixated on things, and it's possible. It is quite possible.
Yeah.
But I just did a presentation for MPI, the Dallas chapter yesterday for their education day, and I wanted to give them something, say, well, like I just wanted to leave them with something, and I thought I could write a book for them. Well, I did, and it's called Beware the Franken Speaker. And I think I might put it out into the world and get myself in so much trouble, Dan.
Yeah. You got to do it. You have to, because
I
what I love
know.
about you is the reality. You're a realist and you're
Yeah.
pragmatic, but you also are turning over the sacred cows of an industry that really does need them to be turned over at
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, I know. I know. And that's the one thing too. I feel it's nice to just have some miles under the hood now, to be maybe in the Ruby phase where you go, yeah, well, now or never, Krista. Let's
Right.
go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not cow tipping for recreation, for any recreational reason other than, and I mean, not to jump too far ahead, but we talked about pandemic and COVID and how it's um it threw everybody in the events industry for a loop. Obviously, it was interesting being in a room with a lot of planners yesterday and suppliers and everybody that had weathered that storm, and we were all kind of looking at each other like you good?
Yeah.
How you feeling, right?
How's
And
the
no,
PTSD? Yeah.
oh, I'm not good. But you get to the other end of it, and I think everybody in that room had changed through that. But there was a lot of Gen Zs in that room, which I found interesting. So I
Mm.
think there might have been a lot who didn't make it and just say, I'm out, which we saw happen a lot. But anyway, I had my own existential crisis and like the why am I doing this? Like, why am I still here?
Mm.
Every time I tried to leave the industry, I said God would throw down a spike belt and be like, nope, you're not going anywhere. Why am I still here? And I really felt like, okay, at some point, that's like you said, it's like, have a seat. And so I just sat down and said, why am I still here? And I really feel like it's my legacy and my calling. I've been doing something, it'll be 28 years soon. Um, that I've been doing this crazy thing. It'll be 16 years for my agency in July.
Mm.
And I'm here. And so, all right, well, what's my ripple effect? What would I be proud to be included in my eulogy? What would I be proud for my kids to say? This is what my mom did. My mom was actually responsible for that, and we are in a tremendous position of power. And I'll say that because, I know some agents that have God complexes, because it's an interesting position because we know that we can push certain voices over others, and find them stages. And that I consider that a really huge responsibility. And now that I have that pull motivation instead of the push, it's not fear, it's calling. Um, I'm actually enjoying my job. Like, I'm not getting burned out. I can and do work the 15-hour days. Like, there was I worked over 80 hours last week, and I know, like, so you can't sustain that physically. I get that, but I was so pull motivated to finish this book and get such a great presentation for MPI. And I was taking care of my speaker at the same time too. And um, but I feel so called to do this that I know there's purpose and meaning behind it.
Well,
So
I wrote an entire book called The Purpose Effect, which was about this idea where if you can intersect or interlock what one does in their role and for their organization, in your case, you get to be able to blend kind of both with
yeah.
how they view the world with their personal
Mm.
sense of purpose, then it doesn't really feel like work. And when
Mhm.
it doesn't feel like work, you just wake up and you're fulfilling purpose, whether that's Saturday at 4 or Monday at 12. And that's kind of what a lot of people don't see. And you're very privileged to be in this spot, but you got yourself there not because it was handed to you, but because you developed it. And that's why my hat is royally tipped towards you, because a lot of people will stick it out either as a school teacher or pick the profession without actually having the existential crisis question, well, who am I and what do I want to be? And even when you're in the original speaker bureau, you're still learning and saying, this isn't quite right yet. It's going to get there. I need to develop a little more, but this is what I need to do. And this is what you're doing. And this is the point. It's like, Krista, you're a legend, not just in the industry, but I think as other folks step into what is and who is Krista Haberstock and what is she doing from a career leadership purpose development perspective, that to me is the story. I mean, yeah, we can talk about the industry and we probably will, but I want others who are listening and viewing to see, no, I can do that too. Like, I don't have to stay in quote that role, or even though it might get murky and tough and we'll have to wade through some of the quicksand, I'm going to learn through that. That's where where the friction is, that's where the learning is. And then you can come out like you are, this incredible authority on a profession and an industry indeed. But that's what people miss, is that
Mm.
you have to go through sometimes some of the tumult and the change and the friction in order to get to that spot. Okay, so one of the things I want to get to, because the book Become a Bookable Speaker is as much to me about the industry and becoming a speaker as it is about being a human being. So you
Right.
talk about a few things like brand and sort of experience. Like, who are you? Who are you? I wanted to ask you a bit about your thoughts. Well, speakers, of course, but also just a little bit maybe rounder version of this is when you talk about the importance of building a compelling brand and who it is that you are. Tell me a bit more about that. Like, unpack that for me and why it's so critically important.
This is just such a privilege to talk about this because it's something that I've wrestled to the ground. And I didn't really even realize I was wrestling it to the ground until this last, probably, actually, even writing the book. I think
Hmm.
it really galvanized. I'm sure you had that experience, writing your books. But I didn't realize that my whole career had been, even from the reverse engineering materials into a way that they could understand, it was rebranding speakers. Like I had been
Ah,
rebranding every speaker to make the sale. And when that got old, I went on the representation side. I'm like, how about I just have my top 12 or 13 and
right.
just manage it? So I went on a more of a specialist track, but it's very much the branding. And now what I'm understanding is that there is a deep, deep work needed when people want to create a brand. And
Hmm.
even I'm just having this realization as I'm talking to you. I did it for myself. I didn't even realize until I just was talking about it that when I started C agency, it's just me. I remember actually sitting at my desk in Edmonton and I was like, well, okay, so everybody says you need what was it, a mission statement? Like I was like, oh no, like I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to consult speakers so that they could become more bookable and then manage their business as they became more bookable. And, pretty simple concept. But I'm like, well, people seem to want, what you're all about. So I thought, well, it's just me. Like I'm sitting at my desk, my kids are downstairs. I guess my company is going to be my personality.
Uh,
So I guess whatever Myers-Briggs says about me is what my company is about. So I literally typed into the internet these Myers-Briggs assessments. And I just put all that stuff into the mission statement and said, this is what we are. And so I got to the core of who my company was and to the core of who I was at the same time. And that was the way I branded my company from the start. Never even realized that. So grateful to have that realization right here with you. Thank you. Um, yeah, so that's if once you get to the core of who you are as a person, it affects everything. Now, I don't think Myers-Briggs really got into it, but that was kind of my exercise in finding out who I was so that I could inject myself into my
hmm.
company. But there's much deeper work needed, and that's what I've discovered with the speakers, which is why I call it speaker therapy, because it is therapy. It's a very deep dive into who you are as a person and why you're doing what you're doing and what kind of made you this way. And there's layers of, again, I've mentioned it, but the obvious advantage. Like I would tell speakers, don't ignore the obvious. Don't ignore the obvious. Who are you? Like, don't ignore the obvious. I have a great example recently, actually. I started working with a speaker named Steve Fredland. I don't know if you know him,
Yep.
but for years he's called himself Steve Safari Dude Fredland, which I just didn't like. Like
Yeah.
I was like, it's so kitschy, and I
Yeah.
just sensed something much bigger and deeper about the guy. So I had the opportunity, came to one of my bookable speakers events, had some opportunity as well to do some private consulting with him. And so I said, okay, first of all, drop the Safari Dude. We can weave safaris in if you really need to, but you're much bigger than that. So come to find out, I said, why do you call yourself Safari? Oh, because I went on a bunch of safaris. I said, that's not enough. Like, why? Where did you go? Oh, in Rwanda. Well, what were you doing in Rwanda? And he said, well, at 39, I'd never been out of the country before. And, as a very successful actuary, He has 3 kids, and I call him a Midwestern normie. He had just been providing for his family and humming along, doing all the things that you need to do, all the right things. And he decided what he calls the unright thing. He was like, I'm going to go to Rwanda and help with the AIDS crisis. And I'm like, way to bury the lead, Steve.
Yeah, right. Exactly. What's this got to do with safaris?
Well, why would you not talk about that? He goes, I just didn't think anyone would be interested.
Wow.
And when I say don't ignore the obvious, I believe people's obvious advantages are hidden in plain sight, and it's obvious to everybody except the speaker or the person. You can't read the label from inside the jar. You need someone else to see it for you, I think. And
Mm.
it's very powerful when you do some exploration with people and say, and like, even to think back in your head, what do people say you're amazing at? It's like, oh my God, Dan, you are so amazing when you speak to people, because you just feel like the rest of the world disappears and I'm the only one in the room, and you're just like, well, whatever. It's normal for you.
Yeah.
It's not normal for everybody.
Yeah.
So to think about those things is really important. And that's how it applies to everybody. And I really think that's where my push versus pull motivation came in, was
Mm.
like, well, what am I amazing at? I'm amazing at spotting talent and drawing out the best of them and making that talent something that the market wants by drawing out their obvious advantage. So for me, that has been instrumental in everything, is not like branding a speaker well, but just letting the speaker come out of the speaker.
Mm. I love that. And I
Mm.
think that's also an indelible talent that you have, which is being able to um, meet an individual and ask the right questions and build the right rapport to figure out who they're all about rather than subjecting them to the initial impression. You knew there was more behind the safari, and you were probably, I'm guessing, right, having those type of inquisitive but kind questions and figuring out, really, Rwanda? Like, and then going on, and then I think that's probably part of my point is that's probably part of your DNA, your character, to get to who you are as a leader. You're suggesting, I'm putting words in your mouth, Chris, of course, is don't close yourself off from a conversation. Don't be binary. Be open-minded. Be open dialoguing. And when you're into that, you actually didn't say this, but I wanted to come down to this point you kind of alluded to like 7 minutes ago, and that is about networks and kind of strategic partnerships and collegiality and working with others. So this is the point. The individual, you're not closing yourself off to. Good. So no more safaris. Actually, the story is about you helping tons of people who are going through a very devastating crisis. But you also are suggesting then we have to think about others in a way that is partnering, alignment, collaboration. So I wanted to get your thoughts because I know you talk about it. Whether it is an event planner, whether it is industry people, what's your take on that notion of the criticality of building partnerships? And if you will, my network is my net worth thinking.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're built for connection. It's like, it's right there in Genesis. It's not good for man to be alone. It's right there
There
at the
you go.
beginning.
Yeah.
And that's it. We are built for connection. We're built for partnership. We're built for community. And I think we're built for collaboration, from the start. Like, that's what we've always done. And, we tilled the land together. We lived in, villages and little tribes. And here we are talking over Zoom. Have I met you in person? I don't think
Yeah,
I
in
have.
Detroit. Yeah, in Detroit.
Oh, in Detroit. Oh,
Yeah.
Detroit. That's right. I was actually just thinking that. Okay. Well, fantastic. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I know you forever, and this is our community. So this kind of networking and collaboration is huge. Now, I tend to see it because I'm naive and I'm a Pollyanna. I see these connections and I'm Canadian at my core. People say, "Oh my God, you're so Canadian." I'm like, I can't help it. I'm nice.
Yeah.
But I see these connections as the journey, not the destination, and some people, I think, maybe see connections as the destination and not the journey. So, and what I mean by that is, what do I have to gain from this person?
Mm.
And that kind of thing runs deep in this industry. Mine's deep in the world, but I've seen it a lot, and you sure find it when the bottom falls out. You see it, when people scatter like rats off the Titanic. It's kind of like, oh, I hit a speed bump and now everybody's gone. So it's really and that's been a huge wake up call, kind of like, well, what are my connections for? My connections are for the journey, not the destination. And I don't know that I would close off any kind of relationship with anyone knowing their maybe intent, because I'm in a perceived position of authority in this industry that I can make or break a speaker's career. I mean, that may or may not be true. I would never be the one to say that there's God complex. Like, I don't need any part of that. I know that my skill set over like almost 30 years definitely has some shortcuts that I could offer, but I just think that connections and collaboration is the lifeblood of our humanity. And because of that, because it's in us, it's going to bear fruit. Like, good things bear fruit, And so that's why I think it's important. I mean, if you want to make like strategic connections and strategic network, and that's fine, and maybe they'll go further faster and have more money than I will. But I just make connections out of the purity of knowing that it's good for me to be connected to as many people as I can, because that's why we're here. I think that's why we're here.
I love it. Okay, my penultimate question is about the future. So the industry of speaking has, I mean, it had a pre-COVID industry, I guess, lexicon, and then we had whatever that 2-ish, 3 years was in and around the
This
pandemic.
is we're in.
Yeah, and now, okay, so we're quote post-pandemic. I mean, I certainly as a speaker see the increase in face-to-face, but certainly there's still virtual happening. I'm just curious, it doesn't matter about the right ratio of what's happening in the industry. What do you think is changing in the industry itself between organizations that are hiring speakers, but then there's also conferences and the bigger things that are happening that aren't, company or organization specific. So just your thoughts really on where we're heading as the sage Ruby on the stage right now of the industry.
Sage Ruby. I like it. That'll be my code name. It's like my
Sage Ruby?
my 007 name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
So I keep my ear very close to the ground on trends and what I can see, because as you know, I'm branding, but I'm also marketing my roster of speakers. So I want to know what they already have as an offering that is going to scratch the itch of the industry and drive business and increase their bookings, of course. So, I mean, perfect example, actually two perfect examples. So my two OG speakers. So Doc Henley, he's a 2009 CNN hero, founder of Wine to Water.
Yeah.
And he started an international aid organization by accident. Like, he's a tattooed motorcycle riding bartender from North Carolina with like a tip jar and a communications degree. And this is how he started, this massive, he's helped 2 million people. Wine to Water has helped 2 million people in 53 countries over the last 21 years.
Wow.
So it's really incredible. Now, he, as I say, he fell backwards into what he's doing as well. Before, when we first launched him in 2010, he was my Power of One speaker, because there was a big push at that time. It was just a common theme, the power of one, the power of one, the power of one person to do something. And then it was like overcoming adversity and resilience, and it was all that. So those kind of things bob and weave. Well, we are in the era of sustainability. And because his organization brings clean water and sanitation to communities around the world. And, he's actually in North Carolina where the hurricane hit. And so there was massive devastation in his town in Boone, North Carolina.
Wow.
And so they've been boots on the ground there, which has been really interesting to have the crisis come to them. But, he's been able to bring clean water and sanitation in his own backyard now. And that is highly sustainable. Like, he would go and help build wells that would break right away. And that's what a lot of organizations used to do. But now he actually brings filters in that last a whole family for 10 years, a family of 5 for 10 years. And it's one water filter. And so it's incredibly sustainable. It's not water bottles, because a lot of the aid organizations just dump like the massive amount of waste and plastic. So I'm rambling a bit, but that's sustainability.
Yeah.
Byron Reese I've had him on my roster for, let's say, 12, might be 13. Actually, it's 13 years now. And when he came to me, he's a real outlier on my roster because I love this humanitarian thing, and I'm all touchy-feely. Well, Byron's like a international selling best-selling international best-selling author. His books have been translated into 13 languages. He's a futurist, technology guy, serial founder of multiple companies that were sold. And he's an optimist. He does not subscribe to the dystopian view of the future, which is what made me go, you're a total outlier for me, but any futurist who's going to say that technology is going to make the world better and wars are going to decrease and humanity, like our lifespan, is going to increase and humanity is going to get better because of technology, sign me up. I'm good with that. Well, when I first signed him, we put the technology and the future and the optimistic futurist right at the front, right? Front loaded his bio, but he did a little thing called robotics and AI, which I dumped at the back of the bio.
Interesting.
Oh, what it was? I was like, I don't know what artificial intelligence is. Well, let's just say it is right at the front now.
Prescient. Yeah.
Yeah, it's front loaded. So I call him my OG AI because he was one of the original guys talking about AI when literally nobody knew anything about it. So when I talk about,
He was around when it was just I. That's what I'm hearing. Like there was no A. It was just like
there's no
full
A,
I. Yeah.
intelligence, so
Yeah.
artificial. That's right. So those two long stories to tell you that the industry is in flux. You're also, because of those two things. Now, if you want to track the trends ever in any industry, take the pulse of what generation is at the forefront of the whole thing. So right now, we've just got a small little percentage of boomers hanging on. We've got the Gen Xers, that's us out front, right? The latchkey kids,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
kids who FSO'd everything. It was a DIY generation. We were raised by wolves, most of us.
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. And so that's the generation that's in charge right now. But we've got the millennials coming in hot. And it's the millennials, and I'll tell you, it's our kids. It's the Gen Z. So the millennials and the Xers, but the millennials are really driving what's happening. So there's a ton of collaboration. The audience has to engage with each other.
Yeah.
It isn't just breaking the fourth wall now between the speaker. They have to engage with each other. So
Yeah.
speakers are well served to do audience things, audience participation with each other, the collaboration. There has to be a strong platform of credibility with speakers, that they have a lot of gigs, they have a lot of reps under their belt, because there's high fear, low trust. AI has helped us, but speakers are putting AI generated audiences in their videos, so you can't tell. I call it catfishing.
Nice term.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
it.
You can't tell who is the faker and who's the real one. Hence my book, Beware the Franken Speaker.
Well, I can't wait to read that one as well. But the one that's out there right now is Become a Bookable Speaker from the Agent Who Takes Speakers from No Name to Hall of Fame. Christa Haberstock, this is such a treat. Where can we find out more about you, the books, the agency, and so forth?
Speakers who would like to know more about Bookable Speakers, we have events 4 times a year, and that's at bookablespeakers.com. Love to hear from you. And christahaberstock.com is where my Obvious Advantage stuff is. And then C Agency is my agency. I mean, I think those are my top 3 websites. Talk about serial entrepreneur. I mean, let's just stop buying URLs. That's enough. So I would say those 3 places will work. And LinkedIn. LinkedIn's my home.
Well, we'll put all of that in the show notes, Christa. This has been such a treat. And really, yes, speaking industry aside, it's you that I'm very interested in, the example that you've set for many people to learn from, which is, again, back to continuously develop. If you find that purpose, good things are going to happen. And the fact that even in this era, this Taylor Swift era for you of your rubiness, the gem that you've polished is helping others see that it's possible, regardless of whether you're a speaker or not.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Dan. So nice to have this chat with you today.
All right, folks. Well, that was or is another episode of Leadership Now. And thank you for tuning in, watching. And again, Christa Haberstock, thank you so much. We'll see everyone next time.